dispute on the 700 block of Main Street in Dunkirk. Edwin Chmielowski III, 36 years old, entered a woman's house attempting to strangle her. The female victim was unfortunately able to escape, and her neighbor dialed 911. The Observer states, quote, officers were also aware that Chmielowski had an active order of protection in place advising him to stay away from the residence and victim, and that he had several outstanding arrest warrants, end quote. When the officer responded, Chmielowski barricaded himself inside the woman's apartment and hid beneath her mattress located in her bedroom. He is now facing charges of second-degree burglary, first-degree criminal contempt, both felonies, second-degree unlawful imprisonment, fourth-degree criminal mischief, criminal obstruction of breathing, and obstructing government admission. Chmielowski was also arrested on his outstanding warrants of his first-degree criminal contempt, second-degree criminal contempt, second-degree obstructing government administration, and second-degree harassment. Wow, say that 3 times fast. That was awful. The Chautauqua Jamestown Airport, JHW Airport, will be closed on Tuesday, October 29th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for runway grooving. Airport supplier says, quote, runway grooving is a method employed to enhance the coefficient of friction on wet surfaces, has established itself as the most economical and effective solution in the field of aviation construction and maintenance, end quote. Chautauqua County does mention that they anticipate that the runway grooving will take around 12 hours to complete. For questions, you may call 716-484-0204 or fishers@chautauquagovernment.com. That's all for your local news update. Now let's take it to Parker with sports.
Fredonia got started on their weekend of sports on Friday with women's volleyball facing off against Cortland, losing by a set score of 3-0. They continued play into Saturday with a win at home against Morrisville, winning 3-2. Also on Saturday, the men's soccer team played on the road at SUNY Oneonta, losing by a score of 2-1, with the lone goal coming off of Brian Taylor, his 13th of the season. The women's soccer team played at home against Oneonta on Saturday, winning by a score of 2-0, and goals were scored by Annie Gondek and Katie Sellers. This win secured the women's team the 4th seed in the SUNYAC playoffs and home field advantage in the quarterfinal, which will be played on November 2nd. Before they can play one more regular season game on Tuesday on the road at Chatham with a start time of 5 p.m. The Sabres played on Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings, winning by a final score of 5-3. Goals were scored by Bowen Byram, Jack Quinn, Jason Sucker, and Tage Thompson netted a pair. Goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen saved 22 of 25 shots faced, and the Sabres play again tonight at home against the Florida Panthers with a start time of 7 p.m. The World Series is in full swing after this weekend, with the Dodgers taking a 2-0 series lead, heading back to New York tonight for Game 3. In Game 1 on Friday night, the Dodgers' first baseman Freddie Freeman played hero with a walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the 10th inning, the first walk-off grand slam in World Series history. Final score of Game 1 was 6-3. In Game 2, the Dodgers won by a score of 4-2 thanks to home runs from Teoscar Hernandez, Freddie Freeman, and Tommy Edman. Game 3 is scheduled for tonight with first pitch at 8:08 p.m. in New York City. Week 8 was in full swing yesterday in the NFL with some great games. The Lions mauled the Titans 52-14, and the Chargers struck down the Saints 26-8. The Browns grabbed a victory over the Ravens 29-24, and the Cardinals clawed a victory from the Dolphins 28-27. The Patriots rumbled their way to victory over the Jets 25-22, and the Bills waltzed into Seattle and won over the Seahawks 31-10. Bills quarterback Josh Allen went 24 of 34 for 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. James Cook rushed for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns, and wide receiver Khalil Shakir had 9 receptions for 107 yards. Other scores can be found on ESPN.com. Monday Night Football is in action tonight with the New York Giants on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and kickoff is slated for 8:15 p.m. That's it for your sports update. Let's send it to Aryana with the 2-day weather.
Now here is your Northern Chautauqua weather update brought to you by Fredonia Radio Systems.
Good afternoon, Fredonia residents. Today we have a high of 65 with a low of 45 towards the night. Expect partly cloudy skies today with wind gusts up to 7 miles per hour. Is that a lot? I feel like that's pretty windy. Tomorrow, expect it to be a little warm with a high of 72 and a low of 63. There will be a nice shower Tuesday morning, but 91% chance of cloud coverage. Where is Glenn Powell? Because these temperatures are twisted. All right, that's it for 2-day weather. Stay put, and I'll be back for your 5-day forecast. But for now, let's send it to Julia for my favorite segment.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Pop Culture and Local Music segment. I have Charlie XCX stuck in my head, and Halloween is this week, so it's looking pretty awesome. The Toy Box presents a Halloween show on Saturday, November 2nd, with bands like the Midroom Drifters, Disorderly House, and the Ryan Terry Family Band. Doors at 8, music at 9, and check out their Instagram for more info at the Toy Box USA. Also, Tyler, the Creator, has released his 8th studio album, Chromacobia, this morning. I personally have yet to listen to it, but trust on Wednesday I will deliver the review. But from what I hear, it has come just in time for the fall spooky season, and I'm very excited. The Menendez brothers have been talk of the town after Netflix documentaries and dramas of it have been growing in popularity. The two brothers are currently serving life in prison without the possibility of parole in California after being found guilty of killing their parents, Jose and Kitty, in 1996. However, quote, the Los Angeles County District Attorney formally recommended their resentencing in a court filing on Friday, arguing for a lesser sentence for the pair. If approved, the request would make the brothers eligible for parole, end quote. This is after the DA office reviewed somewhat new evidence that corroborates the brothers' story of physical and sexual abuse by their father. LA County District Attorney George Gascon says, quote, they have been in prison for nearly 35 years. I believe they've paid their debt to society, end quote. Yesterday, in New York City, Washington Square Park was overrun by skinny brunettes who were competing in a Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest. While many were expecting this to be an ironic gathering, thousands arrived to catch a glimpse of the competitors, leading the police to fine the organizers $500 for a, quote, unpermitted costume contest, end quote. Timothée Chalamet, who was filming in New York City, caused even more pandemonium in the crowd when he made a surprise appearance, posing for pictures and greeting some of the competitors. Miles Mitchell, 21, won the contest dressed as Chalamet's Willy Wonka and received a $50 check. That's all I have in music and pop culture news this week. Let's bring it to Dan for national and international news.
Thanks, Julia. An Mi-2 helicopter carrying medical workers crashed Saturday evening in the central Kirov region of Russia. There were 4 people on board. ABC News says, quote, the helicopter, operated by one pilot and carrying a doctor and 2 paramedics, crashed in a forest and near the village of Belinki, about 700 kilometers, 435 miles east of Moscow, according to an online statement from Russia's emergency ministry, end quote. 3 of the bodies were immediately found at the scene of the crash. Details of the crash have not been reported. Astronauts Matthew Dominic, Michael Barrett, and Jeanette Epps, and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Grebenky landed on Earth in the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft at 3:29 a.m. local time on Friday off Florida's Gulf Coast. Only one of the astronauts was hospitalized shortly after landing. However, NASA initially reported that the entire crew was flown to Ascension Sacred Heart Pensacola Hospital out of precaution. 3 of the members have been flown back to Houston. Russia's space agency has not responded to a request for comment on Mr. Gerbiki's condition. Sky News states, quote, the Elon Musk-owned company remains the only U.S. option for NASA astronaut trips to and from the space station. Boeing's Starliner, intended as a second U.S. ride, has been hindered by years of development issues. The crew should have been back on Earth 2 months ago, but their homecoming was stalled by problems with the Starliner astronaut capsule, which returned empty in September because of safety concerns, end quote. This past mission was marked as the longest mission so far for SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft since its introduction in 2020. Last year, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for the arrest of Russian President Vladimir Putin. His charges are war crimes, with the court accusing him of personal responsibility of the abduction of children from Ukraine. However, last Thursday, the courts failed to arrest him when Putin visited Mongolia last month. The International Criminal Court is made up of 124 countries. Out of these, 33 are African states, 19 are Asia-Pacific states, 19 are from Eastern Europe, 28 are from Latin America and Caribbean states, and 25 are from Western European and other states. Russia is not a member of this court, and neither is the United States. AP News says, quote, "Instead of arresting Putin, Mongolian authorities rolled out the red carpet. The Russian leader was welcomed into the main square of the capital, Ulaanbaatar, by an honor guard dressed in vivid red and blue uniforms styled on those of the personal guard of 13th century ruler Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire," end quote. In a statement released by the International Criminal Court, quote, "States parties and those accepting the court's jurisdiction are duty-bound to arrest and surrender individuals subject to the ICC warrants, regardless of official positions or nationality," end quote. That does it for today's national and international news. Now let's take it to Aryana for some more stunning weather.
Today, according to my calculations, aka AccuWeather, we have a high of 65 and a low of 45 with temperatures rising for Tuesday. On Tuesday, there is supposedly a high of 72 degrees, Wednesday 75, Thursday 72 with expected thunderstorms and rain. Lowest temperature hitting 49 on Thursday, but mostly staying in the low 60s. Are you ready for Halloween? Well, after this heat wave, temperatures start to decrease, only slightly heading into the 50s this weekend. Before I leave, I must ask you a screamingly good question. Why did the ghost quit studying? Because he was too cool for school. That's a knee slapper. I say you need to go back to studying, and I'll see you lovies back on Wednesday. But for now, let's introduce you to Dan Q.
For all those listening, welcome to the very first political news segment on News at Noon. I'm Dan Quagliana, who you might recognize if you've been a regular listener. Let's jump right into it. As you all probably know, Election Day is merely 8 days away. Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris is facing Republican former President Donald Trump, and the polls are neck and neck. With no clear winner, it's anyone's game right now. According to 538.com, Harris is ahead in the national polls by about 1.5 points, but that's well within the margin for error, and it could go either way in the next week. According to the same website, swing states Nevada, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania are statistically tied. Harris has a slight edge in Michigan, while Trump is ahead in Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona. As of last night, 41,807,042 mail-in ballots have been turned in, marking a new record for early mail-in voting. On Sunday, at a rally for former President Donald Trump at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Tony Hinchcliffe, a stand-up comedian, delivered a comedy routine where he called Kamala Harris, quote, the devil, unquote, and claimed that prior to vying to become the first woman president of the United States, she had begun her career as a prostitute. He also made derogatory remarks toward a number of groups. Quote, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. I think it's called Puerto Rico, end quote. He made further racist remarks towards Latinos, Jews, and blacks, all key demographics that Harris is trying to energize to drive out the vote in. Trump's opponent in 2016, former Democratic Senator and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, said that Trump was, quote, reenacting, end quote, a pro-Nazi rally held in the same location in 1939 on the onset of World War II. The remarks of the Trump rally caused Latino musician Bad Bunny to endorse Harris in the election mere minutes after the event was aired. Trump senior advisor Danielle Alvarez said that, quote, this joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign, end quote. Last Friday, newspaper The Washington Post made the conscious decision not to endorse a candidate in this year's presidential election, for the first time since 1988. David Shipley, the Post's editorial page editor, told his colleagues at the paper that the decision was made by Jeff Bezos, the paper's billionaire owner, as well as the owner of Amazon. Other editors at the paper reacted negatively, with editor-at-large Robert Kagan handing in his resignation. Former Washington Post executive editor Martin Barron told NPR that, quote, "This is cowardice, a moment of darkness that will leave democracy as a casualty. Donald Trump will celebrate this as an invitation to further intimidate the Post's owner, Jeff Bezos, and other media owners. History will mark a disturbing chapter of spinelessness at an institution famed for courage," end quote. The Washington Post Guild, the union representing the staff at the paper, said that they were concerned about the interference in the paper from its management, especially since the editorial board had already drafted up an endorsement of Harris. That's all for political news. Now let's send it back to the hosts.
That'll wrap it up for today's edition of News at Noon. Campus News is written and read by London Nickolai. Local news for this broadcast is written and read by Maisie Strader. Weather is prepared by Maisie Strader and read by Aryana Ramalhete. Sports is prepared and read by Parker Gurnett. Music and pop culture is prepared and read by Julia Klement. National and international news is prepared by Maisie Strader and Dan Granados and read by Dan Granados. Political news is written and read by Dan Quagliana. And finally, board operations for this broadcast are performed by the lovely Izzie and Inzinna.
And always a lovely special thank you to our team and each and every one of you for tuning into News at Noon. Join us every Monday and Wednesday at 12 p.m. on WCVF 88.9 and WDVL 89.5. From all of us at Fredonia Radio Systems, tune in next time, have a wonderful day, and keep it vibrant in this corner of Chautauqua.